Convocation Commander Conroy had been a proud member of the small military the Libertonian still had for most of his life. He'd fought pirates, he'd performed Black Ops missions, and he'd even battled hunter-killer raids. He was proud to serve, and he knew that war would one day return to the Libertonians. What he hadn't expected was that they'd have help when the war finally began again. And he'd especially never expected their help to be so... how did he describe them? Loud? Boisterous? Utterly insane? Those all fit. So he supposed he'd just have to call them what they were. Americans. The Libertonians had been outnumbered in the last war, but this time they were also limited from centuries of being forced to keep their military incredibly small. Of course, they built up what they could in secret, but they hadn't been able to start production of their power suits until war was officially declared. The average Libertonian could fly, and had razor-sharp claws, but the Crusticans had hard shells and their own claws. Bastion's landmasses were mostly mountains and valleys, which were perfect for Libertonians, and made it harder for Crusticans to advance, but their invasion force outnumbered the actual Libertonian soldiers 200 to 1. With militia forces, that dropped to around 120 to 1, but it wasn't looking good. Then the Americans showed up with a large fleet to even things out a bit. Their ground forces had been easily deployed around the Libertonian mountain cities for defense, but they needed to counter the Crusticans spreading out around the planet, looking to cut them off from mines, farms, and smaller towns in the valleys. Considering their small numbers, the Libertonians had been spread out among human forces to act as guides and coordinate with militia. Before meeting the Americans, Conroy had thought militia forces were chaotic and unorganized. But then he'd been assigned to the 32nd Stormtroopers. They didn't have power armor, but they did have explosives strapped to their backs. He'd been told they were called jetpacks. A Libertonian could fly through the skies gracefully, swooping down on a target, and then rising away before they were touched. Humans seemed to have a different idea of how this would work. I'm telling you, Commander, we can stomp down on those crowds and fuck their shit up. I don't get why you want to just fly over them. It still stung Conroy that he wasn't talking to some tight-winged recruit, but a human officer. Captain Garcia, that is a forward base, not a simple outpost. There has to be 300 Crusticans in there, and at least 50 in armor. What you're proposing is that me and my 2 soldiers, and your 50, take on a full base of trained and experienced hunter-killers, without any air support or artillery. Conroy, we've got jetpacks, and you've got power suits that fly. We are the air support. They're preparing AA, but it isn't operational yet. This is our chance to get in there before they're properly secured. You forget they have 2 AA guns operational already. Yeah, but there are 2 recon teams in position, and ready to snap the crabs out of the gunner seats before we're in range. Conroy and Captain Garcia were standing on the edge of a mountain plateau, with the valley stretching up before them. The Crustican base was situated on a wide open plain, where they were starting to set up landing pads. It was a typical Crustican design, high walls in a circle, with roofing all over but the very centre. They had 6 tors arranged around the base as well, with double-leg guns being set up. He looked along the plains, which had nothing but some flowers and grass in them, and shook his head. You must be mistaken, Captain. There isn't anything but the Crustican base down in the valley. Sure there is. See that group of rare flowers? Right there. Next to that little pond? Yes, what about them? Captain Garcia spoke into his collar. Parthead Actual, this is Centurion Actual, do you copy? There was a pause for a moment. No, I don't care that you hate your call sign Parthead. Deal with it. Anyway, our bird friend doesn't think you exist. Move about 5 feet to the left. How do you copy? As Conroy watched, the red flowers wiggled and shifted a little as he gasped. Yeah, thanks, Parthead Actual. Over. How did you get soldiers so close to their base? We've been up here for hours. I haven't seen them this entire time. Yeah, neither have the crabs. So come on. Conroy shrugged at that. Very well. I suppose I'll just have to see what you Americans can do. He walked back to his power suit, and the two veterans he still had with him. When he started to climb up into his suit, he looked back at the humans and was confused. They wore those dangerously volatile jetpacks, and had armour along their heads and torsos, arranged in olive drab green plates that overlapped. He heard they had power suits, but they were still rare, and made only in very small numbers. Their shields were also worse than the models the Libertonian militia used, so as far as he could tell, their main defence would be speed. So why were they picking up rocks? Once Conroy had climbed into his suit, and the armour sealed around him, powering up, he spoke over the speaker. Why are you and your soldiers picking up rocks? This gravity is really light compared to what we used to. We don't fall enough on our own, so we need these. Conroy gasped out as he looked at them, all picking up giant rocks from the plateau. You cannot be serious. Sure we are. Want a race? What? Conroy blurted out, as the humans turned and then shot into the sky. All 50 of them had giant rocks in their hands, as they arced out over the valley. Conroy cursed and quickly jumped his power suit off the edge, and activated his thrusters to catch up. He kept expecting the AA guns to start firing, but the crabs on those towers got knocked off somehow. The recon teams? He still didn't understand how they killed the Crusticans, but his mind was on the battle ahead. The humans dropped out of the sky, and he expected them to let go of those rocks, but instead they kept holding them, dropping into that small open circle at the centre of the base. When he dropped down, they had already started to attack, and to his shock they were throwing the rocks at the Crusticans. They had ballistic weapons, but some didn't unholster them yet. All around him the humans were smashing the hunter killers with rocks, as if they were pre-industrial barbarians. I bet I can kill more of them with a rock than you, he heard a human say to another. But then the hunter killers overcame their initial shock and began to fight back. That's when the humans finally pulled out their guns, and a battle cry rose up. For liberty, freedom, and Billy Bob Space Trucker! Billy Bob was standing out in the Peruvian forest, his ship in the small clearing behind him. It didn't smell like a redwood forest like he remembered as a kid, but overall, it smelled pretty foresty. Brown trunks, green leaves, something that resembled acorns but the size of his head. Not bad. The 3 archangels he'd been talking to walked out of his ship as he looked around their little campsite. No campfire, obviously, but they set up black hammocks between trees, and he could see what looked like a hunter's blind in the treetops. It made him think back on camping with his family, and he smiled. Then he heard Emily call out, "Billy Bob!" He looked around, but got taken by surprise as she dropped out of the trees in front of him. He kept forgetting she could fly. She leaned in and gave him a hug, but it was his turn to gasp and groan before she pulled back and looked down at him. "Ow! You're still hurt?" "Yeah, I did get my ass kicked pretty hard at the museum." "What would ass pain have to do with any of that?" She sounded confused before shaking her head. "Human expression. Never mind, I get it." "Huh, yeah. How are you, though? Have these humans been treating you all right?" "Oh, of course. I was so worried we wouldn't make it back at the museum. When they showed up, I can't tell you how relieved I was. And they've been teaching me how to hunt from the ground. It's a very strange concept. I want to fly and swoop down, but they tell me not to break the tree line." "What were you doing up in the treetops, then?" "I can't fly, but I can still get up there and scout." "How have you been since the museum, anyway? You did good. Did you have combat experience?" "No, but I've hunted." "See, I just could never do that." Emily paused at that, and Billy Bob looked over at the others. "Any of you know what I mean? Killing someone because they're trying to kill you is pretty easy. It's just like, well, fuck if it's me or you, I like me way better." But animals? I just never got the feel for it. Don't get me wrong, all respect to hunters. I guess I'm just a pussy. The Archangel's a step forward. Cal was still the only one who had taken her helmet off. No, I get what you mean. The other two looked at her when Captain Crunch spoke up. Really? I thought you'd been hunting. No, but I do go fishing. See, fuck fish. I don't give a shit about fish. I don't mind killing them, Billy Bob said, as Emily stood next to him, seeming confused. But in general, it's kind of weird for me to kill something minding its own business. Except fish? Emily asked. Yeah. I don't know. Go fly fishing, catch a nice trout. Have it for lunch super fresh after cooking it up in a Dutch oven. Good stuff. But killing an elk or deer with a rifle? They're just trying to eat or sometimes get lucky. He shrugged. But you killed those creatures back on the station when we were trapped by the space clown. The what? Sergeant Sampson asked. Dude, worst species of all is these freaky fucking space clowns. They can float around and move really fast, and have razor-sharp claws and teeth, and a third eye in their forehead. Whoa, slow down. There's a species that dresses up like clowns. No, that's how they look. Giant feet, fat bodies, red noses, white creepy faces. They try to sacrifice innocent people to appease some creepy-ass space clown god. Wow, fuck that, Cal muttered. Think we'll have to fight them in the war? No. Everyone in the galaxy apparently hates them, Billy Bob said. Well, look at that. Universal constant. Everyone hates clowns, Sergeant Sampson said with a nod. Emily finally spoke up again. Okay, but if you all hate them, why do you have them? The humans were quiet as she looked around. Can any of you explain why they still exist among your species, if you all hate them so much? Huh? She looked around as they were all still quiet. Finally, Billy Bob spoke up. I bet it's the Europeans' faults. Yeah, Samson and Carl said with a nod, before Billy Bob continued. The French probably figure if we get rid of clowns, mimes are next, so they protect them. Somehow, behind the scenes, because we'd all rather have mimes than clowns. But if there were no clowns, we'd boot mimes too. Yeah, that sounds reasonable, Cal said with a nod. No, it's not the Europeans, Captain Crunch said firmly. I don't know why we still have them. They creeped me out as a kid, and I'd never hire them, but someone still does. So, I don't know. Well, anyway, those animals were trying to kill us. I squished those headless Ewoks because they were creepy. Cal frowned, and knocked a brow as she heard him say headless Ewok. But I felt bad for the pogo because killing an animal clean and cutting its tendon and hearing it scream is way different. Like, if you go to squish a spider because it startled you, but when you have it in the ball of toilet paper and you squeeze and you both hear and feel that pop? The Archangel groaned as he said that. Yeah, you know that pop. Please don't talk about stuff like that, Cal said. Most bugs just sort of smear and it's no issue, but every so often. She shuddered as goosebumps rose on her skin, obviously reliving that experience in her head. Okay, we need to stop talking about this stuff, Captain Crunch said. It gets us nowhere. He was the one who started it all, Emily said, pointing at Billy Bob. Oh, right. What did I originally ask? You asked how I was and then went off on hunting. Just saying that I couldn't do it myself. Billy Bob. Oh, right. Well, you seem okay. You're amazing in that power suit. Did I say that? I kind of forget. You're good. The Archangels are good. We're all good. Yes, but I think they might be those meatheads you talked about before. When they leave their armor at night to sleep, they look all muscular and bulky. The Archangels looked at Billy Bob, who looked at them and then back at Emily, looking confused and unsure. What are we talking about here?
When you were first talking about humans, and how your food deposit is natural.
She poked his gut, and he laughed for a moment at the sensation. Then he had to think back on their early conversations. Oh! How this is normal and healthy, and some humans have a disease with meat in their brains, so they work out way too much? He could feel the eyes of the archangels boring into him. Yeah, I lied. They're way healthier than I am. I'm fine, but it's not like I'm a prime example of human physique. I got a bit of a beer gut, but I'm strong. I'm on the blue-collar workout routine, after all.
Wait, you're not in top physical shape?
Hell no! She stared at him for a moment, obviously a little confused.
But you're fighting, and running, and strength. You beat up those Borks and fought for hours without rest.
Yeah, I'm a little stronger than your average human, but that's about it. I'm slower than most, too. I'm pretty normal. He pointed to the archangels. They're the humans in top physical form, plus power armor.
So, you're normal? You're average?
I wouldn't say average. I'm a good pilot after all, but like ground combat? Average. Better in a brawl than most, though. I'm a good 6'3", which is tall for my people, so I have reach. But yeah, like running and shooting, totally average. She stared at him then, before looking at the archangels.
Is he serious?
Yes, sir, Carl said with a nod. He's tougher than he gives himself credit, but the real top combatants are us. Of course, we are the absolute best that humanity has to offer. The others nodded at that.
Okay,
Emily said, and then crossed all of her arms.
If you're all so tough, how come we've been hiding on this planet for 2 days?
Well, while we're excellent face-to-face soldiers, getting shot out of the sky still happens to kill us. Not to mention that great soldiers can be killed by shitty soldiers if there's a fuck-ton of them. Sergeant Samson blurted out, before Captain Crunch waved a hand. It's a bit more complicated than that. We needed to wait until our cruiser had a better fix on our position, and the crab ships left orbit. Sergeants White and Inanovich should be back from scouting soon. The issue is they have a lot of AA in the area, and we're unsure what their fighter complement is in the area. Getting your longhorn off this rock isn't going to be easy. Well, how did you get it to this forest? You guys might have been paying attention, but I happened to sleep through that part, Billy Bob mentioned. We flew low. So long as we stay under 2,000 feet, they can't pick us up on the big sensors from what we've seen. They are sending local craft around, but they suck at searching forests. We're thinking we might be here for a month or so. Go around picking off sensor stations and AA platforms, and then hoping they don't have any fighters around when we head to space. A month? Billy Bob gasped. And Emily did as well before she continued.
We can't wait that long. We have to get to the council capital during the big meeting, so I can show them the suppression device.
The Archangel stared.
The council assholes have been making other species stupid, thanks to some sort of big control device that works through the FTL lanes and translator updates. They've been making the other species easier to control and more likely to go along with their plans.
So, if we expose them, then we might not be at war with the entire rest of the galaxy? Captain Crunch asked. Yeah, just the council races in charge. The crabs, those space poodles, the fish cups, and some space hamsters I haven't met yet. The captain was quiet for a moment. I suppose there's still enough of a challenge, but fighting the entire galaxy will make for the ultimate test of humanity. The others nodded at that, adding their agreement.
What? You actually want to fight the rest of the galaxy?
Emily gasped out. Well, it would prove once and for all we're the best, Billy Bob said with a nod. But the UHG will be mad at us forever. Oh, yes, that's true, Cal said with a nod. I mean, if it wasn't our fault, they might get over it. But if they found out we had a chance to limit the war, yeah. All right. Well, that's even if we can get off this damn planet, Captain Crunch reminded them. Billy Bob thought for a moment. Hey, there were plenty of cargo ships traveling on and off the planet. Why not take one? What do you mean? Xeno cargo ships are massive. You know that, and without the proper codes, they figure it out while we're leaving orbit. Yeah, but I can fly an Atlas. I saw the command setup once. Those idiots spread out all the jobs so everyone has something to do, but I could do it.
You could pilot an Atlas on your own? Those things have command crews of like 10.
Hey, I told you guys, I'm a good pilot. Well, a good cargo pilot. We'll hit a spaceport, fly my Longhorn into an Atlas, take it over, and then get the fuck out of here. If they start shooting at it, it's a fucking Atlas. They have a lot to shoot. We'll just burn my Longhorn should things get bad enough. Captain Crunch was silent at that for a moment. It's a better plan than anything we've got. I'll contact White and Ivan. Cal, Samson, you stop breaking down our camp. I want to see if we can move out tonight. As they started to split up and work, Billy Bob was left alone with Emily. Looking over at her, he thought about what they'd told him. I heard you told them to be careful with my neck. Maybe you should just try not being so rough with it. She smirked at that under her mask.
Yeah, well, I'm starting to think I'm the badass here. You got beat up and had your arm cut off while I did just fine.
Oh, that giant metal power suit had nothing to do with it, huh? Miss charged straight into a bunch of matter slammers.
I totally could have taken them on my own. I dragged your sorry ass to safety, didn't I?
She slowly leaned over to give him another hug, resting her muzzle on top of his head. He still wasn't sure he liked being the short one. It felt weird.
I can see why humans like hugs. They're warm,
she murmured softly. Yeah, well, don't expect me to let you tear my throat out with your teeth again. He had an arm around her, as he carefully avoided crushing her wings. But I am glad you decided to save my arm, and me at the same time.
How could I give you double high fives if you lost it?
Came her reply. He took a slow breath of the forest air and thought it over. Maybe the archangels were right about Emily. But that would have to wait until they were off this planet, and then for him to fully recover. So he didn't want her getting too comfy too fast. She felt him shift a little, and then her eyes opened after she heard the noise. Did you just... Sorry, I'm still sore and tired. It just kind of slipped out. She quickly moved away from him. Billy Bob! Hey, humans fired. You're gonna have to accept that.
At least I can fly away from you out here.
I swear to God it's not that bad. You're exaggerating. As she flew up into the treetops to help them scout, he shrugged and began to limp back to his ship. Good thing she didn't realize he could make that noise with one hand and an armpit. And so ends another chapter in the adventures of Billy Bob, Space Trucker.